their lives. But this took close to an hour. So really, Chacham Eina B'Roishai, if they give you permission to lie in the room, but do it in a way it will not cause this terrible Chil Hashem. Part 2, which is the technology on Hilchos Shabbos. So let's start with a common case, a person, automatic lights, you open the door, you go there, the door opens, automatic flush, climate control, you walk into the room, the air conditioner or heating goes on. So I heard someone said, Rabbi Yashiv, I'm listening to Karel, Tzibad L'chaim, well, makel in a hotel room that's climate control. Now, it didn't sound right to me, so I began my fascinating journey of learning the sugya properly. So let's consider the following case. A person opens the door, and the light goes on. The old-fashioned automatic light. So attempted to say, I didn't do anything, I'm just going into my room. So that's good when you're in second grade. I didn't break it by itself. You can't say that when you're a responsible person. You open the door, you put the light on. Now, to me, was a pella. I found the tshuva of the Beis Yitzchak, the Levava Rav, Yitzchak Shmelkish, in the Hashmatas Yardei Chelik Beis at the end, Siman Lamed Aleph. The Sefer was printed in 1895. That means the tshuva was written over 120 years ago. I know that they had electricity in those days. But he writes that they're building now in Vienna rooms that when you open the door, the light goes on. And when you go out of the room, the light goes off. And I quote his Lashon, Bevadi Asali Yisrael Lichneis B'chei Dezu V'Latzimenu D'B'Gnizasai Hu Mavir U'Bitziasai Hu Mechaber. Basically, it's an Issa D'Raisa to use such a room because you're putting on a light on Shabbos. Now, the truth is, that's not such a chiddush. Because it's not happened by itself. You open the door. And it's not even a grama. Grama means a delayed reaction. As the Gemara says in Shabbos Kuf Chaf, there's a fire burning and you put down barrels of water. And when the fire gets to the barrels of water, the barrels burst and the water extinguishes the fire. That's a grama because you did a ma'aseh heta, you put down barrels of water. And it's a delayed reaction. Here, you, be a dayan, open the light. Now, most lights have a switch. This light has the switch opening the door. That's not a grama. In fact, Rav Moshe in Chelik Beis Siman Samaches was asked a common question. I forgot to disconnect the light bulb in the refrigerator. And now it's Shabbos. I can't open the refrigerator. What do? So Rav Moshe says, call a guy and tell him, open the refrigerator. That's all you tell him. He'll open the door, the light will go on. Then you can tell him to unscrew the bulb. Why? So Rav Moshe says, because opening the door is only a psik reisha you put the light on. Psik reisha, the Ramah says in the end of Reish Nun Gimel, by a guy is mutter. So once you got the door open, it's a psik reisha by a guy. To unscrew the bulb is only in Issa D'Rabbanan, because it's only kibui, which is not a tzarech l'gufay, and that's mutter b'makei mitzvah because you need to get your Shabbos suda for the entire Shabbos. So even though you can't have a guy put on the light, but this is a chachma of psik reisha. You didn't tell him to put on the light, you told him to open the refrigerator door. But lemaisa psik reisha by a yid is still a malacha gemur. But to me, what's interesting, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman in Shemir Shabbos Kochasa Lamed Aleph Hara Aleph and a Mincha Shleim but Tzadik Aleph Tes says he doesn't understand Rav Moshe because to tell a guy to open a refrigerator door is not just a psik reisha. It's a ma'aseh b'yadayim. Zok Reb Shlomo Zalman, because since this is its switch, and this is the only way to put the light on the refrigerator by opening the door, that's the derech of the malacha, and it's worse than a psik reisha, it's a ma'aseh b'yadayim. Now the truth is, you could understand Reb Shlomo Zalman's yesod. Will anybody say a light switch is not ma'aseh issa, it's a grama? Not a grama, it's a ma'aseh b'yadayim. In a refrigerator, that's the light switch. And the emes is, this yesod could be a kamara b'ferish Gemara. In Bava Kama Daf Samach, the Gemara wonders, how could Zoyra, winnowing, throwing up the tfu in the air, and the wind blows away the psoilas, and the food falls down, how could that be a malacha deraisa? It's only grama. Zog the Gemara, because Shabbos maleches machsheves asra Torah, and that's why it's a malacha deraisa. Zok the Rosh in Siman Yud Aleph, even though it's only grama, but b'hacha chayv Torah, keeping the malacha zu ik asiyasei al yedei ruach. That's the way to achieve this malacha. So Rabbi say, when you have a light switch, it's a malacha deraisa. When you open a door or open a refrigerator door, and that's the way to put on the light, it's not a grama, it's not even just a psik reisha. Shlomo Zalman reasons that that's a ma'isa b'yadayim. Now, whether you hold it's a grama or whether you hold it's psik reisha or ma'isa gama is immaterial. Both of them are asa and could be nisa deraisa. And that's why the Beis Yitzchak objected to opening a door that puts the light on. So therefore, if you go to a hotel, and typically they have the closet, you open the closet and the light goes on. So you'll say, I just want my jacket. I don't want a light to go on. But you can't be in denial. That's either a psik reisha, or maybe even a ma'aseh b'yadayim, that's vadei asa b'yayid. Now, so the question now that bothered me is, how can you say Rabbi Yashiv allowed climate control? You walk in and you put on the air conditioner heating, that's a ma'aseh b'yadayim. And especially we know Rabbi Yashiv was the paisik that felt that you can't go to the kaisel on Shabbos because of the surveillance cameras that are going. So I looked into it a little closely and I found something magnificent. Let me share with you. Today we have the growing problem, probably today it's at the level of unavoidable, of surveillance cameras. Today people are concerned, this safety, security, and some insurances will not give insurance unless you have installed security cameras. And the question is, what's the halacha about having it in a yeshiva, in a shul? It's going, it's monitoring. So let me tell you a little bit about this shaila. Today, whether we realize or not, a lot of people are being recorded on a constant basis. It's likely to say that because of satellites, every one of us, when we walk in the street, there is some type of recordings. Is that a problem? I'm walking to shul, there's a satellite recording me? Or better yet, you're walking to shul, and all of a sudden a tourist, he said, obviously never saw a religious Jew, says, wow, I never saw such a person. He says, camera. Do you have to run for your life because he's taking a picture of you? Are you doing an issa? So, psik reisha, no, there's one pash of the chilik. When you do a ma'isa, even if you don't intend to do the issa, that's psik reisha and that's asa. You open a door to get your jacket from the closet. You don't want to put the light on. But the reed can't be in the aisle. You are putting the light on. That's psik reisha and that's asa. But when the satellite or this tourist is taking a picture of you, you're not doing anything. You're the object of his malacha. You're the gavra or the chefza, I don't know what I am, but that's what I am. I'm the gavra of chefza of his malacha. There's no issa of me to be the object of someone else's malacha. So when the Karen David writes, if someone needs a passport picture and he wants to do it on Shabbos, he's Messiah and that's us. There, you're doing something. You're posing, you want it. But when you're walking and a picture's taken of you, that's not psik reisha. Someone is doing a malacha with you. Zok Rabbi Yashiv in his Sefer Ha'arais on the Sech Pesachim Daf Chafayim at Beis. The Gemara there says, Hanoah habal adam bal karcha, which means a person is walking in a neighborhood and there's incense of avodah zarah, reach of avodah zarah, that's unavoidable. He can't walk without smelling it. He closes his nose, but it still goes in. So the Gemara says, Lo yefsha v'lo k'mechaven is mutter. If he tries as hard as he can and he cannot avoid it, whatever goes in is okay. Hanoah habol adam bal karcha is mutter. As I state in the Gemara. Frag the Ran in Chulin. So why did the Gemara say Asalis Rapa is Bavodah Zarah? A person is sick, he came to Bavodah Zarah to heal himself. Why don't we say like Efshalai Kemachavan is Mutter? Zokteran with the hezb of the Pnei Yeshua, there's a fundamental chiluk. If you're walking in the street and doing nothing, it enters your nose. In fact, you find it appalling. You find that you can't be beside it, but you can't help it. But Lamaisa, you're doing nothing. That's mutter. But if a person's sick and he wants to take a refuah of avodah zarah, you are accessing, you're using avodah zarah, that's different. The het is habal adam bal karchay. Zok Rabbi Yashiv in his Sefer Aris and Pesachim on that Gemara, from this Ran, we have a heta to walk in a place that there is a surveillance camera that's recording. Because you're not doing anything, it's going anyhow. Ein kan maisa di day ve'enei maisa isa. It's going anyhow. What are you doing? In other words, if you have a motion detector surveillance camera that when you walk into its range, it goes on, so you're putting it on, so that's your Maisa. But typically they're going 24/7, they're going anyhow, you are just being the object of that malacha. That's immaterial and that's irrelevant. And therefore it's a mutter. You'll say, so why does he hold that you can't go to the Kaisel? So there's a beautiful article in the Or Shabbos in Chayveres Chav Zayin, and that's for a wholly different reason. Because there we all want security by the Kaisel, and we all want there should be constant motioning. And the truth is there are cameras, besides just the cameras, but there are screens that are fully visible at all times. And there, the problem is not the fact that it's recording, but the fact that it's on screens, that's monitored constantly by police, and it's a nichele, we all want this extra level of protection, of security. So it's not the fact that it's going constantly, but the fact that it is on a constant screen, and that's a ksiva, albeit eina miskayamis, and that's the problem. And takado that I make, although it's not me. But the point is, the fact that cameras are going, and there's no screen that your image is appearing on, the fact that just recording is really, Rabbi Yashiv held was mut. Rabbi Nissen Karelitz in a Sefer Chotshani Chelik Dalet Amid Kuf Samach Gimel was also asked about about surveillance cameras, and he also had pointed to this Gemara in Psachim. Now he has a little more of an arichas. He says the Chafetz Chaim in Klal Vov Sif Hey writes that if you're sitting with people talk lashon hara, you have to leave or stuff up your ears. He said that's pashut. There you're listening, but when you're walking in the street and someone's camera is going anyhow, that's not you. In fact, he says the Gemara says the person's walking in a place that's not sneezdik, so he's called a Russia because there your eyes are looking, you're doing something. But the fact that a person is walking like efshav or like a mechaven, he says it's mut. He tells to a famous Magen Mishnah in Perik Yud Beis Hilchos Shabbos that there are some things that are just not a Maisa Issa. The Chazon Ish in Nun Aleph Yudal explains that, for example, actually the Magen Mishnah gives his mashal. Taking off a little piece of wood from a tree to use as a toothpick is tikkun mana. But let's say you don't need the piece of wood. You just take it off because the Echveis is inadvertently. It's not tikkun mana. Not every piece of wood becomes a toothpick. The Magen Mishnah says there are certain amalachas, particularly tikkun mana, that the makavana makes it asa. The Chazon Ish in an Aleph Yudalet says what a person is not thinking about is not a Maisa Issa. So we see both Rabbi Yashiv and Rabbi Nissen Karelitz permitted the security cameras that are going anyhow. Now, again, the ones that go on with your motion is a much more serious problem, but he's talking about the ones that are going anyhow. Now, someone asked me a fascinating question. I'd love to hear an answer. He made a Shabbos bar mitzvah, and it was glad kosher kedasu kedin. After Shabbos, someone told him, I have a great idea for you. You're not ready for this, but let me tell you a great idea. Go to the hotel manager and tell me you want to take out the recording of the cameras the whole Shabbos. He had no idea about it. He didn't know about recording. He says, you could be the first person that has a video of your Shabbos bar mitzvah. So the truth is, it's not such a bad idea. I mean, I'm not saying you should do it, but in halacha, there was no ma'isa issa. In other words, there's the old shaila. I saw the Betzina Rav has in Chelik Zayin of electric members and Ayin Zayin, and there's Nidbru in Vav Yuches. They speak about the Talmud that taped his Rebbe's Shalosh Shudas Torah or Nil Sachagis Negeya. He already said Baruch HaMavdil, but the Rebbe or the Rashiva didn't know about it and spoke into the tape. Is that tape Osabano? Because the Magid, the one that made the speech, did not yet say Baruch HaMavdil. So I once said that someone says, I don't know what the halach is, but I have a copy of the tape if you want to hear it. Now, some people, in fact, did even worse. They arranged their tape recorder before Shabbos, the tape of Kol Nidre, which is also done, but that's not a bigger avil. But anyhow, the point is, there, an issa was done by someone. Hopefully not the speaker, but unfortunately that's the issue. But here, no issa was done. So after the fact, can you go and take out the video? I mean, I don't know what the issa is. I certainly not proper. But the point is, when it's going anyhow, that's not your action at all. But getting back, it seems that when the video camera is going anyhow, when the surveillance camera is going anyhow, it's really me or the pavement is not much of a chilik. Now the next question is a motion detector or a sensor that puts on a light or the heating or the air conditioning. Is that also mutter? Rabbi Yasher, I'm listening else we matter that. The answer is chas v'shalom. Like Karv Zelzeh. When the camera is going anyhow, and the question is, you are the pavement, there's no issa. When you walk into a hotel room and the door puts on the heating or air conditioning, we're back to automatic doors. That's either psik reisha or ma'isa b'yadayim. It's not like a satellite. Rabbi Yashav's het is ein ka ma'isa today, ve'ein a ma'isa issa. That's good by a satellite or by a surveillance camera. When you open the door and the lights, air conditioning, or heating goes on, that's ma'isa diday. That's your switch. I'm missing Karelit's analogy to a satellite. It doesn't apply in this case. This is you. And I'm missing Karelit's in that sefer Amid Kuf Samach Vav spells out. But the place that they have these automatic sensors that put something on when you walk into the room, avad is us. In other words, security cameras is one heta, and automatic doors is one issa. I must tell you, Rav Vosner, was the Amud Hayra, was Mekel even regarding motion detectors. But I want to tell you a little bit the chronological order of the tshuvas, which I think is important, and people don't realize this. He has 3 tshuvas about it. For some reason, the second tshuva was printed first. So I'm going to start with the first tshuva that was written 3 years early in Chelik Tessim and Samach Tes. Someone from Europe asked him if he could go to walk on the street. When he walks by a house, a light goes on. He has no idea, he doesn't know Machavin, but he realized after a while, he passed someone's house, the motion detector puts on a light. So Rav Vosner says, Betach ein chashash issa b'zeh akapanam yikad edin. Rav Vosner says his phenomenal chiddush. The yisoid of Hilchas Shabbos is meleches machshavas. And the focus is it machshavas, tzikreisha, Machavin, ein Machavin. But the starting point, Zok Rav Vosner, is malacha. There's no Chil Shabbos without malacha. Zok Rav Vosner, when a person is walking in the street, and he puts on a light without any kavanah, without any intention, without any extra action, there's no malacha. If there's no malacha, it can't be malachas machshavas. He says a person is walking in the street, doing nothing but walking to shul or the like, is no malachas issa. He compares this to the Magen Mishnah that I mentioned, that there's no ma'isa issa unless there's a kavanah. And he compares this to a gewaldige chiddush of the Rashba. The Rashba says if someone comes home Friday night, and it's during the winter, and his wife says, "Guess what? We have visitors. There's a deer in the house." So he closes the door not to catch the deer, but he wants to because to keep the cold out. Zok the Rashba it's mutter. Freg the Ran and the Magen Avram in Shin Tezayin quotes this. What do you mean it's mutter? Psik reisha that you're making seder. Zok Rav Vosner, what did the Rashba hold? The Rashba held when you're closing the door to keep the house warm has no shaykhs to the deer. You're doing a ma'aseh heta that happens to be trapping the deer. That's the Rashba sheet. But this was Rav Vosner's sheet that a motion detector light should be mutter. Rav Padova in Chesed Ephod Gimel Pei Gimel has come out the same shaila with the same sushtel to the Rashba, and he's making. But 3 years later, Rav Vosner has another tshuva, and it was printed for some reason in a tshuva earlier in Shevet Levi, Tes Samaches. He first says motion detector is okay, but he said when you walk into a hotel and it's automatic door, even I agree that's asa. It's not just you walking and the light goes on somebody else. You open the door and they're putting on the light. That's what he says afterward. And then he says, you ask me other shaylas about hotels, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to look for heterim. She'ein safek belibi the efshal lamed al kol hatzdodin v'chol hamtzois sheyeshlam. There are more and more advanced in technology. V'oid yischachus bezeh the efsha mamish beli mechshaylim al kein shem nafshe yechak mizeh. So in tshuva 3 years later, he already, I wouldn't say mellowed, but he certainly put a disclaimer. You got to be very careful what you're doing. And the third tshuva in Shevet Levi Chelik Yutzim and Samach. He was asked a question from an Erlich young man whose parents were in the hospital, and he went to visit his parents. But in every room there's a camera, and the camera is projected to the nursing station. So all movement in the patient's room is seen by the nurses in the nurses station. So Rav Wosner says that basically the fact that it's going anyhow and you don't care about it is fine. He does add, if you want to call the nurse, don't use the convenience of motioning like come, because then you're making a ksiva b'kavan. But the point that I see is, even if you're makel by motion detectors, Rav Wosner said it with reluctance, but he made that distinction. If you open a door and I put on a light, that's not a motion detector, that's a ma'aseh b'yadayim. It's psik ratio, a ma'aseh b'yadayim. But to me, and this is, I mean, not to me, I know many others asked this question, on Rav Wosner's, the premise is questionable. Hoylach kedarkoi, and you do a ma'aseh issa, we find is asa. And we find in Shin Lamed Vav, Sif Gimel, the Mechaber says, Mr. Brewer explains, if a person is walking barefoot and there's high grass, and it's a psikration, he's going to tear out the grass, it's also to go there. He's hoylach kedarkoi, but you can't be in denial. If you're doing a ma'aseh issa, it's us. In Shin Tezai and Sif Cotton Mem Ches, the Mr. Brewer says, Meferish, a person's walking in a place that's swarming with insects, and it's a psikration, he steps on the ground, he's killing insects. It's awesome. So how could you be making with a surveillance, with a motion detector? So someone told me, no, it's different. Because here you're pulling out the grass and killing animals, the ma'aseh issa. And there you're just walking. No, you're not just walking. There is no manual switch to this motion detector. You're putting it on. It's not like you're doing something and something happens with magic, a kishuf. That's the switch. You're breaking the current, or you're completing the current, or it's your heat, or it's your movement. But whatever the case is, this is the switch of a motion detector. So Lamaisa, many poskim did not accept Rav Wosner's heta. I want to mention, people say, I walked into it, now what do? I have to say that the whole Shabbos. So that's a much easier shaila, because you're not putting it out when you walk out. It stays on for X amount of time. When you walk out, you're not putting it out, you're just letting it go out. It's staying there is keeping it on longer. So walking out is okay. But to walk in front of a motion detector, it was makel, but most places can feel that that's a ma'aseh day. It's taka a little long distance, but that's the switch. But to apply this more specifically to the remaining shilas, or a magnetic card, all agree is a problem. Like I said earlier, you have to worry and find an eitzah. Climate control is a problem, I think, l'chol days. Even Rav Wosner that was makel by a motion detector because it's very far. But here, you're opening the door and you're putting on the heating or air conditioning. That's no doubt about it. Rav Nissen Karelitz that was makel with a surveillance camera says beferish, if you open the door and you put on something, that's your ma'aseh. Even Rav Yashiv that was makel again by the surveillance camera. But when you open the door and you put on something, that's ma'aseh day. Now someone said, so then how could I walk into a room ever? There's always a thermostat that every action is a reaction. But that's very far from psikration. This is a real psikration. So what's the eitzah? So practical eitzah would be to cover the sensor. It stays on the whole Shabbos. Now I don't know about the Chayshim Mishpat. If the hotel doesn't want you to do that, maybe it's Geneva. I don't want to get into that, but at least that solves the Shabbos problem. I spoke to someone that's in the hotels. He told me there is an eitzah, practical eitzah, bring along an oscillating fan that moves the air so the sensor constantly feels movement. So again, you're just keeping it on a whole Shabbos. Again, the Chayish Mishpah issue, I don't know. Then he said you bring a helium balloon, it somehow also works. Now, I don't know how that works. Is it the helium balloon with the fan or without the fan? But he said somehow the chemistry of it works. But basically, let's forget about the balloon. Just bring the fan or, do something smarter than that. Now, someone told me that he booked a hotel for Shabbos, and he found out that they have only climate controls. He said, I'm canceling. So they said, what do you mean? We have other Jewish customers, they didn't cancel. Why are you so religious? He says, I'll be as religious as I want. So they finally acquiesced. You know what? If that's the case, we will deactivate climate control. And then I realized that, it's not so hard. They want to do it to save money. So why can we demand Shmir Shabbos more than they're saving money? So, if you have to book a hotel, do it with Chachma. The problem, which unfortunately is more negay in hospitals and nursing homes, with the automatic bathrooms, you walk in, you put the light on, that's a problem, because in opening the door is putting on a light. That's a malacha deraisa. So it's a little uncomfortable, but the only eitzah is you have to tell the guy, please open the door. Okay, he's going to look at you strange. But there's mutter, even though putting on a light is a malacha deraisa, but we said earlier, psik reisha by a guy is mutter. So then once you get into the bathroom, hopefully it's not an automatic flush. But if it is, so Rabbi Yashiv was mekel, because lamaisa, flushing at most is a malacha derabanan, and mamakam kvayda brias, even a yid could do an issa derabanan. Hopefully it's also a grama, so maybe it's even more than that, but even without grama, it's a malacha derabanan, mamakam kvayda brias. That's by the automatic flush. The automatic sink, avad, is less of a heta. You want to daven, therefore you have to wash your hands. So, mida demanki, and don't be machal Shabbos be'issa derabanan. Certainly the automatic heat, the dryer, avad should not be used. Someone once asked me, you have to know the mitzvah, he by mistake put his hands under the automatic sink. Is he locked in for the entire Shabbos? I said, you're not copying the mitzvahs. It goes off after a while. So if you take your hands out, you're not putting anything out. By staying there, you're causing more and more electricity, and that's the problem. And Achrein Chavir, let me just tell you, someone had this shaila, in a certain hotel or nursing home, the way it works, because of the setup, the guard can't see you from his post. So you have to go in front of a security camera, he sees you, and then he buzzes you in. Can you go in front of that camera on Shabbos? That's the most serious problem. Not for the buzzing we said is a daita denafshi. But there you want a ksiva to take place on Shabbos. You're doing a maisa to appear on the screen. True, it's a ksiva she'ena miskayemes, but there probably you should avoid that eitzah and have a wait for a guy to go in and go in with him. I couldn't talk to you.
Shem Yigna Sheter, I'd like to thank Rabbi Smith for the wonderful shir. I'd like to thank also the sponsor of K Kosher, supervised by the Santa family, for sponsoring today's shir. Also, Rabbi Yosef, I'd like to medida Choshev Oilam. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, we're going to have a special guest from Metz Yisrael. Guess who? Harav Agoyin, the Raivid, the Moshe Sternbach will be here tomorrow, 1 o'clock, from 1 to 2 o'clock shir, to give a shir halacha v'agoda. It was not advertised, only right now. Please tell all your friends. Come to see through Kavala Torah. I hope to have him at Hashem Be'ezat Hashem tomorrow. Harav Agoyin, Rabbi Moshe Sternbach at 1 o'clock. Aber klar, man kann schon Gott Gebogel sagen, es ist gerade für gegebenen Tag mit so schnell mal eine Khofas man sieht koi. Die Jagd und Viadi Kadish. Amen. Amen.
The what I wrote?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's coming more.
Good. Thank you very much.
No, but 1 o'clock. The seeker in a few minutes.
Instead of those
Why is it better than electric?
so some people say
Oh, it
that
has the H.
it has a filament. Of course, it's a flashlight, but it's like
It's
a
better than
flashlight.
it's better than
And the electric.
because the power is there. Some say there's no shem in the burn. Electricity, it's kind of good.
When we go. The light goes on, take that down, take the fridge door down, switch. So most of the things you can do, you have to take along the right thing.
You're damn near someone. We should rest about the side. But you guys doing it for you. He has damn near is only for the second or the first. Even that, Mr. Gore says, this is dying. No, I heard that. I have to speak whatever. Of course you have to go It's not the food. Anyhow, but people have this problem. They come to
Well, you have to take a look at
stuff in the refrigerator.
So you always go down the bowl. So you can't get to the bowl. Take a longer roll tape. That's the best. I was in a hotel. I was in a hotel in Moscow with a whole group. So you have to go through the whole like for us, Shabbos, we had a snow wrap. We had a problem going from floor to floor, normally towards a lot. So you had 24 hours people on the floors watching things. You had to go up. So you go
The problem is that our neighbors, go on floor to floor, you have to have deactivated. Not only AIDS, but high security.
They had it open, but they had security.
Girls, every shop have to have. I mean, Lamai is much of a
Well, what's you have to
That I gotta mention that. Someone told me at least now, it does really, all it does is vibrates it's a magnetic lock. It's really is. Magnetic lock. It locks the place. When you push the door, you're not making more electricity. It just vibrates back and forth.
right. That's good. It doesn't automatically open the door. It releases the
It's a
lock.
magnetic lock.
It's not buzzing. I've got it. No, it's the buzzer stops. They buzz it and then it goes off by itself. Goes off by itself.
There's no hospital
It was
door.
about to start.
Push it open. Every year we can have a door like that. He's sitting in the inside. He's sitting inside. He's sitting in his PCF building. He doesn't want to get up.
No, but when you're coming into the place, and there's that.
He can open manually about getting off his PCF building.
No, he's from the outside.
He could go. He has a lock. There's a key. He can open it.
He's sitting inside. He sees you coming in. He buzzes you in. He can get up and open the door.
Door.
Every door has.
Every door's a manual.
Right. Oh, he's inside. Oh, he isn't.
No, they're inside.
They have the guy that
I didn't mean to. Yes, he's inside.
it's not a building. It's not inside the door. You want the door? No. You come over to the desk and then
He can open it.
He cannot.
All hospitals, all nursing homes, they have the guys sitting inside.
Depends on someone to regular.
He's right. I mean, it makes sense. Sitting outside, he's actually the guard in the front. Drive by, I meant inside.
Most of them have inside. The money doesn't
come into your house and relight your fire.
There's a door there, but they don't stop.
Dr. Machaber says the Reish are involved that he needed help when he gets sick.
How about shuls where the guy turns on the lights and turns off the lights? You spoke yesterday.
I spoke about this.
You spoke yesterday in a certain shul. The guy turns on the air conditioner, turn off the air conditioner, and there's no one there.
Yeah, I didn't know about it when I spoke, but okay.
You know where you spoke yesterday.
I think I do, yeah. Not that,
And he brings in tables and brings in chairs from the outside.
air conditioners are, a lot, you said the shoot this today, Baruch Hashem, they're learning.
Most of them have clocks. I guess the cheaper the
Most of them have a clock. Most of them, and they don't have a clock. And they don't have a clock. And they go and people in the tables outside from the garage because there's going to be a big crowd there. When someone comes to speak,
Simcha, you want to wait?
And it says you don't eat together in from one kitchen. What do you do then?
That's the issue. You bring your own food, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of hotels. Let's say for Hanukkah, there's 5-6 families. That yeah.
I said, if you don't eat your own food, it's a problem.
So what do you do?
Eating in different rooms, eating private is not a problem. Different rooms, then you have to get a
So what do you do? How do you make it? You go over to the somebody said you go over to the guy by the checking desk, give him $1, and that's good enough. That's what I was told years ago. So how do you make your concerns? Do what?
I can't tell you.
Go to the manager of the hotel.
They do it. I think Yiddish hotel does it. I think they have it all year.
There's a hotel that every Shabbos during the summer rents out for a bunch of families, every room separately. They eat in their own room. It's official. The hotel allows it.
Well, it's not a hotel.
It is a hotel. It's a
They
hotel.
give food also?
No, they don't give food. Every family eats in their own room, but the bottom is they carry in the hallways all the kids going around.
Hotel?
No, it's a Goyish hotel, but during the summer they are for the evening, and I can tell you where it is. It's no problem. What about so you don't need an Erev then? So how do you make the Erev?
You have to go to the...
Manager, what about the hotels a lot of times? In the hospitals,
Simcha.
the toilet paper in the hospitals, toilet paper in the hospitals, toilet paper in the hospitals. If you have it's a big problem. What do you do?
Because you're not marked by the Israeli. You don't care.
It's worse. It's worse.
Once you reduce the Rabbanim up by that breeze.
No, but you don't need
Simcha,
it by
ready?
the Israeli.
Just
You
make
make
it
it
a
another
quick
place.
summary, then I'll talk to you. He has to finish. Simcha, you ready? Time to
Here
go.
it's where it's concentrated, but
It's the gap for the summer.
Yes, there's 10 Shabbosim during the summer. Every Shabbos it's rented out. So I don't know what Schil Chitim is exactly. You go to anybody in the...
I'll find
not
out.
anybody that has.
Has the jurisdiction.
They say the guy...
There's no Yiddish person there at all.
No, this guy that takes care of that, he rents out the rooms and he rents
He's the
out...
Schil Lakida.
But he has the right to go into the room to take out an appliance. Then he has the.
Maisha holds that since they own the appliances, right? You don't. So they
The
don't
appliances there are there.
Of course,
He
everything
rents
has
out
a
a
refrigerator.
big oven and you pay him a certain amount.
Maisha holds you don't need to have chatzers in that case because of the fact that everything is theirs. They not like an apartment. Even Maisha, even
Right, because they have the right to take out the refrigerator.
They have a
bring it
refrigerator in
from the
every room?
refrigerator.
Refrigerators in every room, but the hot food, he rents out one room.
beds, ovens are theirs.
Everything,
yeah.
Non-movable
everything
items
is
are theirs.
theirs.
Ravi he brings it every Shabbos.
You want to call me then I'll talk to you. I want to keep him.
Okay.
I think you should do this once and for all because Yidden come every week to this hotel.
Yeah, during the summer every Shabbos.
And no one thought of it or probably.
I know what everybody else. I was told to give the guy behind the counter $1 and tell him
And what?
Why not? What is enough?
What are you telling him? What are you giving him $1 and what?
If you want, I'll speak to you tonight, but he has to, just, people are still watching it, so it's a little
A
complicated.
regular thermostat in the house. with not
633.
motion.
633-3916. 3916, not before tonight, first have a shit tonight. Good.
A regular thermostat in the house, if it's not motion.
But there's no psicration. It's far from a psicration.
No, because it's not all right.
Okay, everybody says there's going to be a sequence of today's shir. It's mutter l'chol days to go to your seats. There's no cameras. There's no sensors. Mutter l'chol days to sit in your seats and listen quietly to the sequence.
So this is show something we learned today, Bez Hashem. We should make this Yisrael. Amir La'akum is a very chamadik Issa. It's an Issa, even though it's the Rabbanan, but Chazal made an Issa Hano, not only on Shabbos, but even Matzoi Shabbos, even B'chadei Sheyasa, to wait the time it takes to do Malacha. Not only is it also for the Yid that was done for, but for all Yidden. So obviously that extra precaution is because people take it lightly. Like we said, people think it's a heter or a way of life. It's none of the above. It's a Issa Chomer. And even if the guy did it on his own initiative, he did it to do you a favor, even if that's his job to work for you, to close the light, to put on the light, but that's not a heta at all on Shabbos. The one heta that we focused on, Adaita de Nafsha, he did it for his own needs. He put on the light so he could sweep the floor, or he boiled a cup of water for his tea, and then he doesn't want it, he leaves it there, you could take it. That's when he did it for his own need. But that's Adaita de Nafsha, but when he does it for you, it's Asabano. The Aruch HaShulchan, and that's the minig, if you could create a daita de nafshe, you could say, I would like to give you something, but it's dark, and he'll on his own put on the light, then you could use that light, because he did the putting on the light for his benefit to get what he wants. And to apply this, when you come to a place and the God has to buzz you in, since he could open the door manually, and he chooses to stay in his seat and buzz you in, so you're not having enough from the buzzing, it could be done without malacha, and that would be a daita de nafshe. I should have mentioned that at least now, when I was told that pushing a door when it's being buzzed does not cause any extra current to be generated. It's basically the buzzing just releases a magnetic lock, a magnetic hold, so once it's being buzzed, pushing does not increase the current in any way. requesting information from a hotel clerk or in a hospital, nursing home, for a person's whereabouts, the floor, etc., is really, if there's no list that he could access, it's all on computer, so that's requesting a guy to do malacha on Shabbos. So the heter would be, if you're going to a bar mitzvah, you're going to visit a chayla or visit a parent, keep it up as a mitzvah, then you could have a guy do this because it's a shvus to shvus b'makayim mitzvah. We're assuming electricity when there's no eish is derabanan, and b'makayim mitzvah it's mutter. Requesting room delivery, which can be brought by walking, even though the guy chooses to use the elevator, that's a daita denafshe, and it's mutter, because the anah could be achieved without a malacha. For the guy writing an order of your Suda Shabbos, maybe it's mutter, but it's definitely inappropriate and a stira to Kedusha Shabbos. Room service that no malach is involved, you're allowed to let them do it. Vacuuming should not be done barabim. Using a magnetic card to get into the room is a malacha that the Yid is doing, and of course should not be done. Either leave the room unlocked, at least when you leave it, and leave valuables in the safe, or create a daita denafshe, promise the guy, I'll give you something if you, but I can't get into my room, but it usually does not work, it's not practical. Or of course find a hotel that's Shabbos friendly. Wake-up service, either it's done automatically and it's mutter, but even if it's done manually, but if it's a makkah mitzvah, it's a shvus b'makkah mitzvah. Using an elevator or an escalator, you have to know the mitzias, but an elevator, if it's with a Shabbos, if it's really a Shabbos elevator with the hashgacha, so many places can mekel, some are machmir, of course, as we know, but at least that's something to talk about. Just the fact that they call it a Shabbos elevator, you make sure that it indeed doesn't have the problems inherent with elevators. Escalators that uses more energy with extra people, of course, which is always the case, should be avoided because that's increasing current. A hotel that is one kitchen needs an Erev Chatzeret. Someone pointed out that if Lamaisa, he said some hotels that you come with your own food, that Taka hotel needs an Erev Chatzeret. So Moshe's big kula that if the hotel owner owns the non-movable parts of the room, whether it's the furniture or if they have an oven, since he owns the non-metaltalin in the room, you don't need Erev Chatzeris at all, which is it's not to be makel if you're stuck in a hotel without an Erev Chatzeris. But in such a hotel that people bring their own food, an Erev Chatzeris should be done properly. When a person is in a hotel to light in a place that you could have a no on Shabbos, lighting in the room, if it's permitted, should only be done when there's no problem of putting on the smoke alarm. Automatic door or automatic light or automatic that puts on air conditioning or heating is a sikreisha or maybe even a maisa b'yadayim. Although most places can be made by a surveillance camera, that's because it's going anyhow and you're not doing anything. But if you open the door and you do any type of activity on Shabbos, that's a sikreisha or maisa b'yadayim. A surveillance camera that you want to be seen on the screen, and it's a nichale like Rabbi Yashav held by the Kaisel, that could be a problem, but generally what's going anyhow, it's recording and not visible, is mut according to almost all paiskim. We said that the heta of hanoah bal karchai, but when you open a door and you do something, that's worse. We had a tzarachin, if you could access the recording of your Shabbos simcha after it was done, perhaps there was no malacha, there's no issa hanoah. A motion detector, many paiskim, a chayshish, because you're putting on a light, Rabbi Vosner's cooler was that you're too far from the action to be called your action. But even the makilim is not by an automatic light. Climate control is the same problem like an automatic door, and of course has no heta. Using a bathroom, if the light goes on, you have to have a guy open the door. Then you could, if the automatic flush, if there's no other choice, it's mutter. Going out, there's a heta, because it would be the same issa. I forgot to mention that. Going out of a bathroom when the light goes off, the yid's doing it. The only heta is that kiboy is the rabbanan, and you have to go do a mitzvah, and it might be a grama, perhaps that's the tzat to be makel. But certainly to avoid an automatic sink, an automatic dryer, and I should mention, someone pointed out, when you go to a hotel, it's kedai to bring along some tape, because if the closet has an automatic light, you put a tape over that switch, put a tape over the refrigerator switch, so at least you could use the refrigerator and the closet.
Why no light flash with them?
It's the rabbanan,
Why is not silent? Is it?
no other.
Can I drive you home?
Someone else is
I want to talk to you.
I promised. And he also went to talk to me. You give me a call?
Yeah,
We'll talk now?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look. Kick off. I mentioned you, Shmai. I mentioned you, Eitzah.
B'Shem Egan Shirator, I'd like to big extra character Smith for today's year, and for the Center family and Chav K Kosher Supervision for sponsoring today's year. Shikar.
Together.